As the founder and CEO of an organization that's helped over 100,000 students build mental and emotional resilience, I've learned firsthand how pain can shape a life and how forgiveness can set it free. Forgiveness is not just forgive and forget. Forgiveness is a process. And the process that I've used to help transform thousands of lives around the world is face it, because you got to feel it in order to heal it. Release it. You got to be willing to let it go and replace it with new thoughts, new perspective, and new identity. I know face it, release it, replace it works because I've used it countless times in my own life. But before I tell you my story, let me tell you about Anna. Anna got in a fight every single day, sometimes twice a day. She got kicked out of 16 schools, and the last school she got kicked out of, she punched the teacher in the face. 2 weeks later, they brought our program in, and they said, Anna, you can come back on one condition. You've got to go through the program. And she agreed to do so. The first day of the program, you have to identify a dream you have for your life. And if you can imagine, Anna identified she wanted to be a law enforcement officer. The next week, you have to identify who are the people in your life that don't support your dream that you have to step away from, and who are those that support your dream that you need to bring in your life and embrace. It was that day she realized if she was going to be a law enforcement officer, she'd have to arrest half of her family, who were huge in the gangs. That next week, she decided to face it, release it, replace it, forgive her family so she could break free and move forward. A year later, she graduated with a 4.0, went on to University of Alabama and graduated with honors, and now is becoming a law enforcement officer. But Anna's story is not just her own. It represents the hurt and pain of students all over the world and their desperate need to overcome it. You know, our youth are facing a historic epidemic. Nearly 60% of all high school students now struggle with anxiety, according to PRB. 5 million high school students every year seriously contemplate ending their life, according to the CDC. 76% of schools are reporting major mental health issues among students. We're at a tipping point. We're facing one of the greatest challenges of our time, the breakdown of emotional health of a generation. You know, over the years, I've been asked, what is the root cause? Is it suicide, depression, anxiety? And the answer is no. These are the symptoms. From my experience, the root cause is unresolved hurt and pain. If this generation doesn't release its hurt and pain, it ruins relationships, leads to self-harm and violence, and reduces productivity, now with 75% of Gen Zers who've quit a job because work is too emotionally challenging, according to the Harvard Business Review. But the good news is this: there is a proven antidote. Building mental and emotionally resilient youth and students will change the heart of this generation. Experts across the country like Elizabeth Scott and Sven Hansen agree that emotional resiliency is a trait that can be developed. It is 100% learnable. So in 2010, based on my experiences and working with medical professionals and educators, I created a structured, evidence-based solution to help solve the mental and emotional health crisis facing this generation. The Ambassadors of Compassion program is measured and proven to reduce anxiety, depression, self-harm, and suicidal thoughts, while dramatically increasing school and work engagement, academic performance, and workplace readiness. The Ambassadors program starts with a powerful kickoff event in high schools, colleges, and stadiums all across the country with celebrities, athletes, professionals, people from all different walks of life. After the kickoff, students go back in their schools for another 10 weeks and work through structured discussions, real-life calls to action with accountability, and service projects. Through the program, what I've learned is that one of the most powerful tools we teach is forgiveness. If we don't learn to forgive, we tend to name, blame, and shame people who don't agree with us. It divides families, businesses, and eventually a nation. You know, I struggled with forgiveness. I struggled to let go of the hurt and the pain of being bullied throughout most of my childhood that later compounded as a director and producer in my experiences in Hollywood. And I'd ask professionals and experts, how do you forgive? Tell me, how do you forgive? And for the most part, I would get, you forgive, you just do it, you just do it. And for some reason, I didn't get it. I needed more. I needed action steps. So in 2010, based on the hurt and the hate that was building up in my body, and the fact that my wife was on her own forgiveness journey, we created Face It, Release It, Replace It, simple yet effective steps to releasing hurt and pain. You know, experts say that if we don't release our hurt and pain, it can get stored in our cells and in our organs. And every time our heart beats, it reprograms that same pain, anger, and for some people, rage over and over again. And it's not just the big hurts or offenses that can affect us. Many times it's the small ones that can have a profound impact on our life for years. When I was in 6th grade, Mr. D was the most popular teacher in the school. Everybody wanted to be in Mr. D's class. And I remember one day during recess, I felt like he was picking on my younger brother. So I confronted him, and he didn't seem to like that too much, so he put me on an X. And an X was my opportunity to do nothing and watch all my friends have fun. And I remember after recess, I was going in, lining up with my teacher to go into my portable, and Mr. D was with his students going into his portable. And I remember looking over at Mr. D, and he kind of smiled at me with a smirk on his face. And I admit, I probably didn't give him the nicest look back, and I walked into my classroom. Well, right before I sat down, I didn't know that he had followed me in. Mr. D grabbed me by my collar, dragged me out by my heels, dragged me across the concrete, threw me in the front of his class, shoved the dictionary in my hand, and said, "Read the definition of go." Now, I was struggling. I was kind of caught off guard by this experience, and I was struggling to read the dictionary and the definition of go. Now, at that time in my life, I was top 3 in academics in my class. And as I'm struggling to read this dictionary definition of go, which is one of the longest ones of the dictionary, I remember it like yesterday. Mr. D pointed to his class and he said, laugh at him, louder, louder, laugh at him. And I looked over at Mr. D and he said, "You can't even read." I remember slamming the dictionary, throwing it on the ground, and walking out of the classroom. For about a week later, I couldn't even read. The words simply would just fall off the page. My mom took me to ophthalmologists, eye doctors, they gave me glasses, but nothing changed. And for the next 35 years of my life, I carried this secret that I would be discovered that I couldn't read. As a producer and director, my wife had to read the scripts to me. Even the stories that I write the concepts for in the movies and bring writers in, I couldn't even read my own scripts. I remember in college, I was a place kicker at the University of Colorado, and I had to sit next to the smart girls, the girls that took good notes, just so I could play and be eligible. Well, a few years ago, I remember going through the forgiveness process with other people in my life. And I thought about Mr. D, but I thought, that's 6th grade, that's dumb, I don't need that. But for some reason, I couldn't let it go. And I remember when I finished the face it, release it, replace it process with Mr. D, I felt this huge exhale. I didn't expect it at all, just this emotional release. And I remember about a week later, I was looking at my texts and my emails, and I remember thinking, the words just stay on the page a little longer. And all of a sudden, I noticed I could begin to read. My wife noticed I could read. My kids noticed I could read. And after doing some research, I discovered I, in fact, was one of those people that had stored my hurt and pain in my cells and organs. And when I forgave Mr. D, not only did I have an emotional release, it had a profound impact on me physically. The process starts with face it. You got to face your pain. Many people fear this step because you got to feel it in order to heal it. I had to go back in my mind and I had to revisit the fear and the embarrassment and the shame, really, of that moment with Mr. D. Then you got to replace it. You got to be willing to let go of the injustice and all the reasons why you don't want to forgive. I actually visualized Mr. D as a wounded child, somebody who had obviously gone through some negative experience when he was young. And when I did that, Mr. D went from this monster in my 6th grader's mind to this person who was broken, a person I could have compassion for, and it made it easier for me to forgive him. And then finally, replace it. I had to imagine what a healthy Mr. D would have done or said in that situation. I visualized him genuinely saying sorry and apologizing to me for what he did at that moment. And then I had to imagine myself, my adult self, coming alongside my younger self and comforting myself in that moment when nobody else did. And then I would visualize myself again as an adult, coming alongside my younger self and rescuing myself from that situation when no one else would. And then I had to let go of the old thoughts and the old identity that I was just some stupid guy who couldn't read, and embrace the truth of who I was without the pain controlling me. You know, I've used face it, release it, replace it countless other times in my life. And as a result, my wife, my children, and my colleagues, they experience a more healthier, more whole, free version of me. You know, my Mr. D story is relatively small compared to the tremendous amount of hurt and pain that people are experiencing all over the world. But the great news is this. Through the power of forgiveness, we have the ability to let go of that hurt and pain that keeps so many of us from getting to our greatness. You know, imagine one day if we had a National Forgiveness Day, a day where our nation would come together and face it, release it, and replace it. Because when we choose to forgive, we not only heal our past, we create a healthier future. A future with more productivity, more connection, more hope, and more unity. Thank you.